out justice, condemn racism, protect our environment, be open and affirming of our LGBTQIA siblings, work for economic dignity, work for health and healing equity, champion the reunification of separated families, protect vulnerable children and populations, advocate for affordable and accessible shelter for everyone, and to honor the unique generational perspectives of each person who connects here. We strive to follow the example of Christ and to treat one another with acceptance, respect, compassion, and grace. We do not cater to comfort, but rather embrace the tension that comes with doubt, holy frustration, and a desire to bring about positive change in our community and the world around us.
So we are rapidly approaching the month of June. I know we've got people in this space that are celebrating summer, kiddos that are home, teachers that are off, professors that are getting a well-deserved break. Sharita's like, woohoo! Although for most of those, there's summer school, but we pretend we've got a few days. I know there's some in this space that are just enjoying the fact that it's nice and it's sunny outside. We've had some really beautiful weather. I know there's some people in this space that summer is scary for with the heat and the humid temperatures that'll be approaching quickly, and I want to honor that that's a scary space. The month of June is nationally celebrated as Pride Month, and as we are an incredibly affirming community, it's really important that especially in this state that the circumstances that our state is in, the decisions that have been made, that we just wanted to take a second and just kind of honor people who find themselves in heartbreaking places, who never should have to be. Honor the existence of our queer brothers and sisters. We also just want to honor those that are facing trauma, that are facing past experiences that bring shame, that may bring feelings like you don't belong. And so we picked out a song that I want to share with you today. It's called Hope You're Okay, and to honor that religious spaces are not always the safe places that they should be. So I want to start and just invite you to listen to these words, to read them on the screen, to just sit with them, and hopefully they mean something.
I knew a boy once when I was small, a towhead blonde with eyes of salt. Sorry. We're gonna start over because I'm a hot mess today. Thanks, Dee. I knew a boy once when I was small, a towhead blonde with eyes of salt. He played the drum in the marching band. His parents cared more about the Bible than being good to their own child. He wore long sleeves 'cause of his dad. And somehow we fell out of touch. Hope he took his bad deal and made a royal flush. Don't know if I'll see you again someday, but if you're out there, I hope that you're okay. My middle school friend grew up alone. She raised her brothers on her own. Her parents hated who she loved. She couldn't wait to go to college. She was tired 'cause she was brought into a world where family was merely blood. Does she know how proud I am? She was created with the courage to unlearn all of their hatred. We don't talk much, but I just gotta say, I miss you. And I hope that you're okay.
Oh, God. God, we sit in this space, we sit in these chairs at these tables, God, and I know that there are so many stories, God, that are represented here. God, I know that these weeks, God, that we have all walked through, they look different, and many of them hold pieces that are hard. Some hold pieces that are celebratory. And God, I just want to lift up those that are celebrating one more day sober today. I want to celebrate those who are facing incredible hardship, whether it be kids that are not home with them, whether it be financial circumstances or stress in some form or fashion. And I want to celebrate that they are taking one more day to choose not to give up. I want to honor those who sit here with mental illness or chronic health issues and who struggle with just not feeling well. And I want to tell them I'm proud of them that they are here. I want to honor those who are on journeys where they are getting to explore pieces of themselves, figure out who they are, and finding people who celebrate that. I want to honor those who are weary, who are tired, those who are in a place that they never thought they'd find themselves, those who are in a place they wish that they didn't have to be in, and those who are just so dang proud of themselves for how far they've come. God, and as I sit here and I can say all day long how proud I am, I want to speak over each and every person here, God, that you created them, that you know them, and that you are proud of them. And that may not be the narrative that they were raised with, the narrative that they've been told recently. But God, you are so proud of your kids. Wherever we find ourselves. This next song is a beautiful song that we've done here a couple times. It's probably one of my favorite worship songs because it's just raw and it's honest. It's a song called How to Be Yours. I invite you to sing along if you want to listen, whatever you need to do.
Say that you want me, don't say that you want me.
God, I just want to thank you for the times, God, that we survive things that feel impossible. I want to thank you for the times, God, that you give us second chances. God, that you show up in the darkness. God, as Christy shares her heart and shares this message tonight, God, I just pray, Lord, that there would be pieces, God, that you would find ways to just speak to our hearts, our souls. God, that we would leave this space knowing how loved we are, how much we belong. That we would leave this space braver than we were when we came in. And that we would feel filled up. In your name, amen.
Is it working? Oh, there we are. Hi. Okay. So, first disclaimer, if you see me keep going like this, I got these really fun new pants that are really comfy, but they don't have pockets. And it keeps freaking me out because I keep trying to put my hands in my pockets and then I'm trying to like be casual about it. And I put my hands in my pockets when I preach a lot. So I'm just warning you right now, there's going to be like these moments where I'm like, and you're all going to laugh at me and be like, Christy, you don't have pockets. Just a disclaimer. Okay, so red letters of Jesus. I tell you a lot that I love you, and because I love you, we dig deep into scripture, and sometimes that steps on our toes, right? Tonight's going to be one of those nights, and I'm going to tell you, it crunched my toes. So I'm speaking from experience tonight. I am speaking out of my weakness. I am speaking out of deep, 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 deep conviction, because Sharita will be the first to tell me every time that this is where I struggle. So as soon as I read this verse, she's going to laugh. I'm just telling you, it's going to happen. Okay, so we've been digging into the red letters of Jesus all year. We just finished kind of looking at some of the harder passages of what we called radical red letters. Personally, for me, this is still radical red letters because this is hard. This is not easy. And we find it in Mark 6. Mark chapter 6, we kind of encounter, I'm catching you up here a little in scripture, what's going on. So kind of what had happened is Jesus had sent the disciples out, right, to go do their thing in pairs. So they were supposed to go out, they were supposed to teach, they were supposed to heal, they were supposed to minister, and they come back. And this is kind of the conversation that occurs. And we're not going to go past this conversation because this conversation was enough for my toes for this one verse. Hey guys, come on in. Hi, Alex. All right, so it says this. Verse 30 says, the apostles returned to Jesus and reported to him every detail of what they had done and taught. Okay, you ready? Here it goes, red letters. Now come along to some quiet place by yourselves and rest for a little while, said Jesus. For there were people coming and going incessantly, so they had not even had time for meals. They went off in a boat to a quiet place by themselves. I'm not good at taking time. I'm not good at quiet places, and I admit it. My name is Christy. I struggle to take a break. My friend Sharita loves to tell me all the time that I need to learn how to rest. And so as I was preparing for this message, I started to ponder something in myself, okay? And this was not an easy thing to ponder, so I'm going to challenge you to wrestle with it too. It's lots of fun. Before we can accept an invitation to rest, I think that we have to understand, first of all, our need for rest, right? Anybody struggle like me to think, I can just keep going. It's fine, no problem. The more that I'm busy, the less I'm going to get in trouble. The more that I'm busy, the more that I accomplish. The more that I'm busy, the better that I can make the world. Nobody can do it quite like I can do it, so I can't take a break. Anybody but me? Oh, there's a few of us. Okay. Enneagram 1s, unite. Let me ask you a question. Because I wrote these questions, and then I read over these questions, and then I had coffee and pondered these questions, and like the more that I pondered them, I was like, ouch. So my first question is this. Are you tired? Anybody? Are you tired like in your body? Like it's just been a long day and you need a nap kind of tired? Yes, Alex says yes, yes, yes. Are you tired like in your mind? Do you ever feel like your mind just goes and goes and goes and goes and you can't turn it off, and it's like, I'm tired in my brain sometimes. Is anybody tired in their soul? Like, in my spirit, I'm just tired. And so I think one of the things that we first have to wrestle with before we can even really wrestle with this invitation of Jesus, this challenge of Jesus to come away and to rest for a little bit, is what's wearing us out? Like, I can't acknowledge rest if I don't name what's wearing me out, right? So the first thing I want you to kind of do for a second, I'm going to give you like 2 minutes. And I just want you to like turn to your people sitting at your table, and I want you to name something that's wearing you out. It can be physical, mental, spiritual, it can be at your soul level, but what is that first couple things that jump to your mind and it's like, this is wearing me out? Can you name those for just a second at your tables? That's a good one. I know. Does anybody struggle to name what wears you out? Or are you like, no, I know what wears me out? We got it? So I'm going to challenge you with some things, because sometimes I think like, oh, I know what wears me out. But then when I really start thinking about it, I'm like, and this wears me out, and this wears me, like, and I don't always think about those things, right? So sometimes our lifestyle wears us out, right? If we're going, or we're in a series of addiction and we're using, or if we're hard on our bodies, or if we're just working 24/7, or all these different pieces, our lifestyle can just wear us out. You know what else can wear us out? You ready? Toes, curl them. Lack of boundaries and people pleasing wear you out. You can't make everybody happy. And trying to make everybody happy is exhausting. Amen? I'm just saying. You know what else is exhausting? Trying to wear a mask all the time. Trying to have to fit in every single situation and be the version of yourself that they want you to be and not get to be yourself is exhausting. Yes. Beating yourself up is exhausting. Anybody beat yourself up? You never give yourself grace. You're great at giving everybody else grace, but you kick your own butt all the time over the littlest of things, and you don't give yourself any wiggle room to make a mistake. Overworking? Guilty? Horribly guilty? Fighting for justice? Like, sometimes good things can exhaust us, right? Things that exhaust us don't always have to be bad. They don't always have to be sinful. They don't always have to be wrong. But sometimes when we're doing good and we're not balancing good with taking care of ourselves, we run out of the energy to keep doing good. And we develop apathy to things that used to fire us up. You know what else makes us exhausted? Unhealthy relationships. Anybody got some unhealthy relationships in your world that just drain you? Like, when you're in those spaces and you're like trying, sometimes you're putting in more effort than they're willing to put in for themselves. And those are hard spaces, and they are exhausting spaces. Existing in survival mode is exhausting. Trying to simply keep your head above water and keep drawing that next breath is an exhausting way to live. It's exhausting physically, it's exhausting mentally, exhaust our soul. Okay, here's one that's really hard. Doing what's not yours to do is exhausting. Nobody else is doing it. I can do it. It's not really mine to do, but I'm going to do it because somebody needs to do it. And everyone gets used to somebody doing it, so they don't try to do it. And before you know it, you're doing the job and the work and the effort of 10 people because nobody else is willing to do it. Serving and meeting needs, loving out loud is exhausting. Can I just name that? Like, I love to do it and I love who we get to do community with, but love costs us something. And we can't love everyone else and not love ourselves enough to take care of ourselves. And I acknowledge that I struggle with that. So when Jesus says, come, he kind of gives us 3 different pieces of this invitation. So we're going to look at them in bite sizes because they're going to challenge us each little piece. So the first one, he says, come to a quiet place. Come to a quiet place. Anybody like quiet? You love quiet. April loves quiet. Anybody else like the quiet? Like the quiet, kind of? So this is fascinating to me because I'm a research nerd. So in 2017, there was a study that was done in the Netherlands, and they discovered that the average length of time that people could sit in silence in a conversation without getting uncomfortable or admitting that they felt awkward. Anybody want to guess how long it is? Oh, you guys are giving them way too much credit. 4 seconds. 4 seconds that we could not handle silence in a conversation. So here's what I want us to think about. I acknowledge that silence can be uncomfortable because sometimes silence is uncomfortable because when we quiet everything else down, there's stuff that we start to hear. Because oftentimes noise prevents us from noticing some of our own stuff, our own thoughts, our own feelings, the way our bodies are trying to communicate to us, the way that our bodies are trying to process trauma and big emotions. And if we're constantly surrounded by noise and loud music and TV shows and people and everybody else's stuff, I'm not paying attention to what my body is trying to tell me, what my mind and my heart are trying to tell me. And I think it's important that we recognize, have anybody ever heard that expression, a change of pace often equals a change of perspective? I want to change that tonight to be a change in volume often is a change in viewpoint. Like if we're willing to quiet the world around us, you would be amazed at the way that we start to look at the world different. We start to look at nature different. We start to look at people different. We start to look at ourselves a little bit different when we have to get comfortable with ourselves. If we're being really honest with ourselves, and this includes me, sometimes I think that we avoid quiet because we're afraid of what quiet is going to reveal in us. It's going to make us deal with some stuff. We can't hide from ourselves in quiet spaces. So I'm going to issue a challenge. You ready? I'm getting my timer out. Here's what we're going to do. I want you to close your eyes. You don't have to close your eyes, I guess. But we are going to do 1 minute, just one, of complete quiet. You got that, Gutsy? No. Gutsy will be the one that makes noise for us. See? I love Gutsy. Okay, so 1 minute of quiet. I want you just to sit in that awkwardness and that tension in yourself for just a minute, and I want you to pay attention to maybe what you don't give yourself the ability to ever slow down and hear for just 1 minute. What did you notice? It's a long minute. Time feels a little longer when it's quiet, doesn't it, Mike? What else did you notice? You're tired? Your thoughts started racing? I noticed myself, I took deep breaths. And I don't take deep breaths very often. And so when I do it, everyone, like Bob's always like, you're taking a deep breath. Is everything okay? And I'm like, yeah. It's like centering. It's grounding. Anybody else notice anything in 1 minute? How much you've grown? You almost fell asleep. That's good. That's honest. So, you what? You. Yeah, a minute feels like a long time when it's quiet. So I think that one of the things that we all have to wrestle with, myself included, is learning to create quiet in our lives. Learning to be quiet with intention gives us an opportunity to deepen and to grow, because we need those spaces to pay attention to what our bodies are saying. When our bodies are saying, I'm tired and I need a nap, or our bodies are saying, you know, I want you to pay attention to those thoughts that start racing. The other thing that I want you to think about is this. Everybody's quiet is different, right? So like for this minute, I said, take 1 minute, we're all gonna be quiet. But being quiet doesn't necessarily always mean that you just set the timer and you just, you know, kind of stare, and you may find quiet in something, right? Like maybe you find quiet in nature. And so maybe your quiet is going outside and going on a walk. Maybe your quiet is sitting in a hammock for 15 minutes and just kind of watching the clouds go by. Maybe your quiet is, you know, being able to go out into the garage and build something with no music and nobody talking to you, but you're engaging in that space with a little bit more quiet. Well, that's a good thought. Dee says, I'm not sure if I have a quiet. And sometimes I don't think we give ourselves a chance to find our quiet space, right? And sometimes our lifestyle doesn't let us find quiet space. So I'm going to propose something to you. I think that quiet can sometimes be incredibly intentional. And I also think sometimes quiet spaces are places that we need to go to heal. Not just in ourselves, but sometimes we need to go to find quiet. That may mean we need to go to detox. That means that we maybe need to go to therapy. Maybe we need to get into a program and get some help to find some quiet in ourselves and in the world. Maybe we need to go to a conversation that we've avoided for a long time and sit in quiet and awkward silence, but be present in a space that is challenging and hard. Maybe quiet is going on a drive. Maybe quiet is going on a walk. Maybe it's taking some time off. She says as she knows she has to go home and pack and make a long list of all the things to do while I'm not here. And maybe quiet is learning to be comfortable being quiet in ourselves, and learning that that quiet can be a discipline and a skill, and it can also be a gift to ourselves, something that we don't often talk about or seek out often enough. So in this verse, Jesus says, come and be quiet by yourself. By yourself. How many people like to be by yourself? Some of us do. How many of you being by yourself is terrifying? And you can exist in both spaces. Absolutely, absolutely. So did you know that there's actually a phobia for being by yourself? It's called monophobia, and it means that you have a huge fear of being alone. And we've seen a rise in monophobia diagnoses over the last few years. We've seen a fancy term that a lot of counselors use called codependency, where it's like, I'm not comfortable being by myself. I need to have somebody around me. I need to be around people. And we live in a culture that struggles to be quiet and to be by ourselves, right? We're constantly trying to surround ourselves somehow with people. Even if it's not physically, it's online. Let me get on Facebook. Let me scroll through Twitter. Let me look at Instagram. Let me watch TikTok videos. Let me do all these things so that I'm around people. I'm entertained by people. I'm engaging with people. One of the things that I think it requires in us is to do some work to figure out why we don't like to be alone. Where's that come from? Because it comes from a different place in each of us. For some of us, it comes from trauma. It comes from possibly being abandoned or having someone leave you or being afraid that someone's going to leave you and not wanting to be alone. And that's a hard thing to name, but it's an important thing to recognize so that we can work through it. For some of us, it comes from, I don't want to know what this is actually saying. I don't want to listen to my own inner dialogue. I don't want to listen to my thoughts. I don't want to listen to my own self-condemnation when I get off by myself. For some of us, that fear of being by ourselves is because we're terrified to start over. We're terrified for something to change because we like what is known and what is comfortable, even if it's not always healthy. Anybody relate to that a little bit? And lastly, I think we struggle to be by ourselves because we are afraid to confront what we like to hide from. And we can hide from ourselves sometimes even when we're by ourselves, through our phone, television, Netflix show that we can binge, all the things. But learning to figure out what those pieces of ourselves are and what we're avoiding is part of that invitation that Jesus is giving you. It's not just go away and catch your breath. It's go to a quiet place by yourself and connect with yourself. Pay attention to who you are. Don't lose who you are in the pursuit of loving and ministry and doing good things. Stay connected with who you are so that you don't lose sight and you don't end up the one that's struggling and needs help. I think that some of the things that I'm processing in myself as I work on doing better in this area is, number one, I recognize it has to be a habit for me. The last few years, as we've gone through COVID and we've done a lot of things, we have operated in emergency crisis mode for years. And you know what? When we operate in that state for a long time, our bodies don't know how to shut down. Like, we put out cortisol, we put out adrenaline at rates that our bodies are like, what is happening? Like, it's hard to sleep, it's hard to slow down. And so for me, I recognize that I have to practice the habit of quieting and slowing down and being by myself so that I can retrain my body and my chemicals and my brain how to not always be in crisis mode, because that's exhausting and that's hard. I also know this. I can't just sit and stare at the wall. Like, meditation and yoga, maybe I'll get there one day, but I'm going to be really honest with you and you're going to laugh at me. So one day I was like, okay, I can't preach on being quiet without trying to be quiet. So like, I'm going to just like meditate in my office for a few minutes. And I am not kidding you. This is what happened. I sit in my comfy chair by my window and I put on some jazz music and I was like, oh, this is great. And I was like, oh, I can't forget to do that. And so I wrote it down. And then about 10 seconds later, I was like, oh my gosh, and I totally forgot about this, and I wrote it down. And it seemed like the more I tried to relax, the more I remembered things that I'd forgotten to write down. And so I literally ended up taking these few minutes of like making a to-do list of all these things. And it wasn't rejuvenating. So I recognized for me, at least to start with, I need to find quiet in a hobby. Like, I need to be doing something. So I told Bob, I'm like, I want to learn how to do pottery. I want to learn how to throw pottery. Like, that's my goal for myself. I'm going to bring y'all a really ugly coffee mug when I figure out how to make one. And I'm going to show you that I did it. But I recognize that. Like, I need to channel that into something. And I think that that's something important for all of us, whatever that looks like. And for some of you in this room, I know you've made huge lifestyle changes recently. And you've gone from a place where your body was in crisis mode and you were in survival mode. And we were on the streets. We were trying to figure out where the next meal, where the next safe place to come, who's not going to come and wake me up. And maybe now you're in shelter and we're chilling out and we're safe. You've got to figure out some ways to channel that. You've got to figure out some hobbies that are healthy and some things to develop in yourself, because otherwise what happens? We get bored and we go, I'm just bored just sitting here, and we go starting to try to find things that end us up into a situation that's not productive and not healthy. So find some hobbies. I think that's a good challenge for all of us. Change your scenery. I probably shouldn't have been trying to meditate in my office. Like, maybe my hammock would have been better. I think I've sat in it once since we put it out in the backyard. Like, What does that look like for us to change our scenery a little bit so that we're not constantly prompted by the dirty dishes or the floor that needs to be vacuumed or all the things that need to happen? And also, ask for help. Ask for help. Like, I'm really struggling to be comfortable by myself. I'm really struggling with this. Do you have any tips? Do you have any ideas? What's something that you do? And ask people around that. When you're trying to learn something new, it's not always going to come naturally. And sometimes we need some assistance in developing those things in us. So here's my last piece of this thing that Jesus says to us. He says, come away and be quiet by yourself. And then he says, and rest for a little while. You notice he says rest, not quit. Here's what I see happen a lot in our world today. We get tired, we get overwhelmed, we get burnt out, and the only solution to that is to quit, is to walk away, is to be done, because we haven't practiced the routine of rest along the way. So it's all or nothing, right? And I'm preaching to myself, it's all or nothing. And we gotta find some balance in that for all of us. Whatever that looks like in your journey, every one of us are different. This isn't a cookie cutter solution. But when Jesus says, come away by yourself, get some rest, it's really kind of this loving way of saying, I don't want you to quit and give up. So we gotta figure out how to endure, and we endure by practicing the routine of rest. Okay, so here's notes I made to myself. You ready for this? This is straight out of my journal. This week, as I was pondering what it meant to rest, what does it mean to take some time and catch your breath? I made this list. It means recharging so that you have the energy to continue to serve. It means relaxing and letting your mind and your body rest and heal. It means renewing yourself and your passion for what you're called to. Because have you ever done something that you're crazy passionate about for so long that all of a sudden it just feels like a routine, and you've lost that thing in your gut that's like, I've got to be out there and I've got to be doing this, and it just feels like something that's expected of you? When you've lost that, newsflash, you need to rest for a minute and you need to renew that spark inside of yourself. That doesn't mean quit. That doesn't mean give up and go away forever. It means take a break, catch your breath, and find your spark again. Realigning your inner dialogue, because sometimes our own voice covers up the voice of what's holy. Anybody ever just completely, you aren't doing enough, you are not doing good enough, you could be doing better. Why are you sitting there right now? You should be doing 10 other things right now. And that voice that runs in my head a lot, I think so often that voice drowns out the sound of God going, it's really good to hear from you. Just come and sit with me for a minute. How are you? I'm proud of you. You're doing good. You're doing hard things. Take a minute, catch your breath. And I think we've got to find ways to rest so that we have a chance to realign that inner dialogue in ourselves just a little bit. Here's another one I wrote down. When we rest, it allows us to redefine who is in our circle. When I rest, it allows me to reflect on the people in my world and who's in my circle, who needs to be in my circle, who doesn't need to be in my circle, who's draining me right now that maybe we need to assess some boundaries. What do those things look like? How do I adjust some of those relationships so that my circle of people in my world is supporting the momentum of my journey? Some of y'all that are making big life changes right now, that's a big one, that's a hard one, because your circle, one time I heard somebody say, you want to know where you're going to be 5 years from now? Look who's around you today. Because who you surround yourself with now often determines the trajectory of where you are headed. And so pay attention to who's in your circle. When we're quiet, when we rest, it also allows us to reassess our priorities. It reminds us what's ours to do, and it lets us refill our cup so that we can pour out. Because we can't pour out of an empty cup. And we're all called to pour out. We're all called to do something. We're all called to love. We're all called to give. We're all called to show up. But if we all keep trying to show up every moment of every day, we're going to wear ourselves out and we're going to burn ourselves out. So here's what I need you to hear as I finish this up. This is not a call to quit in Scripture. This is also not a call to be like, I'm heading out, I'm going on vacation for 5 months, I'll see you later. I mean, that may be good sometimes. What I really think this is it's Jesus trying to build in a routine of like balance and constant going back and forth. It's this reminder of self-care and stillness as a way to be healthy, as a way to be more in line with ourselves. So my question to you is, where do you need to heed the red letters of Jesus when he says, now come away to some quiet place by yourselves and rest for a little while? I know where mine is. I am grateful for the opportunity to step away for a week. I'm grateful to be able to do that because I have an amazing team and we can do that. I'm grateful that I know everything's going to run wonderfully and smooth. And I know that I need that, and I hear that in my spirit when I'm quiet right now. Where do you need to heed that? Maybe you need to step away from the crowds who are making choices that harm you. Maybe you need to step away from relationships that are draining you. Maybe you need to stop people-pleasing and entertaining people all the time and focus on getting healthy. Maybe you need to stop taking care of everyone else and take care of yourself for a little bit. Maybe you need to stop saying yes to what hurts you and start saying yes to what heals you. Maybe you need to stop doing every single thing that you are asked to do and only say yes to those that are yours to do. Maybe you need to stop just going through the motions and find your passion. Maybe you need to step away from some systems of injustice that have broken you down and taken advantage of you and find places that uphold your worth. And maybe you need to stop beating yourself up. And maybe you need to listen to the whisper of God's love, speaking to your heart, to your mind, and to your soul. I'm going to give you another minute of quiet. And I want you to ponder that question. Where do you need to answer that invitation? Where is holiness calling you to step away, to change pace, to change the volume, to adjust some things in yourself so that you are healthier for the now and for the long run? Then Holly and Alyssa, or Holly's going to come up and finish us when this minute's over. My prayer for each of you is courage, because I think quiet takes courage. I think it takes courage to step away. I think it takes courage to face pieces of yourself that it's easier to not pay attention to. And I think it takes courage to adjust to the things that we hear in ourselves when we are willing to quiet and ask. So I'm going to challenge you this week to try to build quiet into your days, even if it's just 5 minutes. Start small and work your way up. Maybe it's a new hobby that you try to tackle. Maybe it's taking a walk every day. Maybe it's just getting away from the crowd for a few minutes and catching your breath. But my challenge to you this week is to start a routine of rest and quiet and paying attention to what's going on in your own body, mind, and spirit. I want you to listen to these words that Holly's going to lead us in worship.
On this plane, I wonder if I'll ever find my way. I wonder if my life could really change at all. On this earth, could all that is lost ever be found? Could a garden come up from this ground? You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. All around, hope is springing up from this old ground. Out of chaos, life is being found in you. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful All right, friends. I hope you all find ways to rest, recharge, take a deep breath. Have some leftover cookies and food, please, and hang out as long as you like.